we're going to be talking a little bit about myself, which I'm not massively comfortable to do in front of people, but hopefully it just gives you a little bit of background on what leads me to talk to you guys today. We're going to speak a little bit about what I do, what kind of businesses I run, what strategies I implement and stuff like that. Why I do it, which is the main kind of crux on the matter about holding properties and stuff like that, which I'll explain before I get booed off stage. And then how you guys can do the same. So I'm conscious that when you guys come to events like this, you're coming here for yourself. You're not coming here for me or any of the other speakers. It's all about your own knowledge and learnings and stuff like that. So how you guys can kind of implement the same kind of model and stuff like that as well. So it should be good. So, releasing all my slides here, Paul. I'm 25 years old. I was a little guy with a walking stick, which is sometimes how I feel about running a property business. So I've got a few different businesses and stuff like that. I'm originally from the Borders and I moved to Edinburgh sort of 6 months ago, something like that. So it's been really good. I got involved in property at 20. So I'm going to speak a little bit about my journey to this point and challenges and stuff like that I faced, which I don't often share. So hopefully it should be quite good. Most people in the room hopefully will know me best as a property sourcer, which is the kind of bulk of my trading activity. Finding investment properties for clients, very, very simple. But I also am an active developer, trader. We buy and flip properties as well. We've got a few case studies and examples and stuff like that to look at tonight as well. And I've done 300 plus property deals, which sounds really good on the surface of it. I've done commercial, I've sold shops, I've got an estate agency, we've sold residential properties, we've sold family homes, we do obviously sourcing, BRR, serviced accommodation, you name it, and we've pretty much done it to date, which has been, it's been exciting. So, alongside that, as I just touched on there, I also own an estate agency. So, whenever you're dealing with off-market sellers, inevitably you get people that are looking to sell, but not necessarily looking to take a discount, or maybe the property is too expensive. So there was quite a lot of wastage in my business, and I just thought if we launched the estate agency, which is basically a property sourcing business, but with Rightmove, you've got a lot more exits and you can monetize a lot more stock. So that's why that was born. So I've been doing that for about a year now. I've got a full-time member of staff that runs that for me, which is really good. As Lindsay alluded to earlier, I'm probably the least knowledgeable letting agent in Scotland, I would say. So in the summer, I took a 50% share in a letting agency because before that, I was working really hard to find clients. I was working even harder to find them properties, and then I was working even harder again managing the tradesmen and everything like that and finding them a deal and then just passing the keys on to someone else. So it didn't really make sense. There was a bit of a disconnect. So when the opportunity came up to take a 50% share in a letting agency, it just made complete sense. So that's it up there, Central Scotland Lettings with Willie Dodd. So it's been good. Also got property coaching, so we do some kind of training stuff. We've got a network group within that. I think we've got like 160, 170 members or stuff like that, and we do a lot of business with people in the community as well. So there's lots of different avenues to make money in property, so it's good kind of learning from other people and getting amongst it and things like that, which is great. In the last 24 months, I've raised over 7 figures of joint venture finance from my own deals. So I'll typically work with one private investor that'll fund all my deals. So he'll put all the cash into it. I'll find it, project manage the refurb, and then sell it through the estate agency. And then we do a profit share on the back end. So I've got a couple of guys that I work with, 2 or 3 guys, but it just tends to be one individual. And I'm going to share a little bit about the story about how we met in the coming slides. So it's been good, and obviously you can do a lot more deals with other people's money than you can do with your own, which is a kind of common theme about tonight's presentation. And I've brokered 15 million quid, just under 15 million quid worth of Scottish property in the last few years, which is good. So just a bit of a headline figure for you all. It's quite a lot of houses and flats, especially when you're selling stuff, they tend to be quite cheap, sort of under 70k and stuff like that. So it's not always been this way, I have to say. So I left school at 16. Was one of these people that didn't really like school. It was never really going to be for me. I left school at 16. My friends were all a year older, so they were leaving, so I was like, fuck it, I'm off as well. I've got 2 qualifications. I've got higher PE and higher English, and just literally had no direction in life, had no idea what I wanted to do. And from there, I got a job at the Scottish Government. It was like a modern apprenticeship. So I think I was 16 when I went there. Was like making like 17 grand a year, which felt like £1 million. And really liked it. And then I managed to get myself sacked, which is not the easiest thing to do in the civil service, might I add. It's actually reasonably difficult to get sacked in working for Scottish Government, but I managed to do it. I went out when I was 19, got involved in something in a nightclub, ended up getting a criminal record, at which point I was really not in the best nick, if you think, sacked from my previous employer, 19 years old, no qualifications, and now a criminal record. I was like, I'm never going to get a job here. And that's kind of what happened. And then I started kind of doing odd jobs, warehouse work. I done like door-to-door sales, commission only. I worked in warehouses. I worked at Amazon. I worked at Farm Foods freezer section, which I've got a wee photo in a minute, which is quite funny. I think I was making like £250 a week, and that was before I paid my fuel to Livingston and back every day. So I was probably making like a couple £100 a week. Absolutely no idea what I wanted to do. Around about the same time, I lost my dad and inherited a little bit of money through selling one of his properties in Edinburgh. And all of a sudden, I just got this money catapulted in my account, which is probably like, I don't know, a year's worth of my salary at the Scottish Government. And I thought, like, what can I do with this money that means I don't have to try and find a job, because I was just getting constantly knocked back from any decent career path, as you can imagine. And I discovered this thing called property, and was just learning online, YouTube videos, stuff like that during COVID, and decided that this is what I wanted to do, and just kind of work towards that every day to try and get to where I am. So here's a photo of me here. This is a Farm Foods freezer section. I think I was probably 20 in this photo. It was minus 30 degrees in the warehouse. Big freezer suit, boots, balaclava on. You can see the headset that I'm wearing is actually frozen over because it was that cold. Making 250 quid a week, wrapping boxes like of frozen chips and stuff like that to go out to the supermarkets. So it wasn't the best career path, but it's just what happened. But I kind of always knew it kind of wasn't going to be forever. So it was never like, depressed or anything like that. It's just, this is just a short-term thing until I can get kickstart this property stuff. And luckily that's exactly what happened. So I had a business partner at that time, and we decided to do rent to rent. So this is going back to, 2020, I think. So we started doing rent to rent serviced accommodation, built up a few units of that, was going reasonably well. And then kind of my life changed when I discovered this word up here. And eventually, when you're doing rent to SA, you're buying the furniture and you're getting it painted. So your money can run out quite quickly if you don't have lots of money. So what we decided to do was source these properties onto investors. So we would find like a deal. We obviously had our own portfolio of rent to SAs at the same time. So we kind of had the experience and we could give them case studies and stuff like that. And then we would sell the deal onto investor and charge them a sourcing fee for doing that. So ended up doing loads and loads of deals like that. Was making ridiculous money, 2021, probably paying myself 4 or 5 grand a month, which felt like £1 million. I bought my first Range Rover. I bought a hot tub from my mum's house. I bought a car registration plate that said B055 MMX, Boss MM. And safe to say it's been in a cupboard at my mum's house ever since. It's the most embarrassing thing. It was like 2.5 grand. But anyway, I was just blowing my brains out, no concept of money, and just, as you do when you're young, I suppose. But it's all kind of set me in good stead for what I'm doing now. And then all of a sudden, the doors came down, the shutter came down, the Scottish Government brought in this licensing scheme, and nobody wanted to buy these deals anymore. And that was literally the only thing that I was half decent at. So I was thinking, oh God, I don't know what I'm going to do here. And literally overnight, the business completely changed. Like, went from making really good money to none of these deals being sold whatsoever. So it's kind of left high and dry. So the business basically totally failed. The actual SA units were okay. But because it was COVID and stuff like that, it was quite inconsistent money, whereas this sourcing was just relentless. It was like a machine. Like, letting agents were passing us them, we're finding them on Gumtree and stuff like that. And then it just all basically failed when Scottish Government changed the regulations. So had to take out a Walker business loan. So I don't know if anybody knows what that is, but it's basically like a payday loan for businesses. So we had sold like 3 or 4 deals all in quick succession, and we'd taken the fees off people, and then the deals fell apart. So we had to take in like a short-term loan to pay back these investors. So we were paying back like 1,600 quid a month for the space of 12 months to give these people back money that they'd paid us in fees. So like, not only did the business fail, but we were paying back 1,600 quid for a year after the business failed, which is not the best position to be in. And at this point, I had to borrow money for my car. So that fancy Range Rover that I bought, had to borrow money in to pay for it. So it just shows how quickly things can change in business. 1 minute you're doing really well, the next minute Scottish Government decide to do something and it all just goes to shit. So that's kind of what happened. Now, at the same time as things were going really well, I was probably making 10 grand a month for a couple of different businesses at like 2021, literally thinking I was a millionaire. I decided to do loan agreements. So the very first property event that I went to was actually speaking to a couple of the guys about this just before we started. I met a guy from the northeast of England, like big portfolio. I think he had like 120 properties. He had a letting agency, he had like a sourcing business, and decided to do a couple of stuff with him. So, as I said, I inherited about 60 grand from my dad's estate. And I'd done a deal with this guy from the northeast of England. I would give him the money on like a loan agreement document, and then he would give you a return back once he sold the project, had done whatever he'd done with it. Now, because I was so naive and didn't really know what was going on, I just gave him it and thought, this is brilliant. So the first one that I'd done, I sent him 20 grand, and then 6 weeks later, he sent me 23,400. So I was thinking, fucking hell, I've just made 3.5 grand, and I've literally not done anything. This is brilliant. I'm genuinely going to be a millionaire by Christmas, right? And then I sent him 40 grand, and then I sent him 25 grand. 5 grand wasn't even my money, just head got too big. He was paying interest for a while, then it just stopped. And then it led to basically like 2 years of sleepless nights, like losing my dad's inheritance, basically what I thought. False promises, he said it was going to complete this. Anyway, it never happened. 2 years down the line, I managed to get about 30 grand of it back. So, eventually, not enough was enough. I got debt collectors involved. They went down, chased them up, and I managed to get half of the money back, which I was quite pleased with, to be honest, because I'd kind of written off the money in my mind, but it was a terrible period, like thinking you've lost this money. And the guy was kind of mentoring me at the same time. So I was, like I said, like 19, 20, maybe 21, and I was speaking to him really often. He was quite friendly. I've actually weirdly still got quite a lot of respect for this guy, even though he ripped me off for 30 grand, but it's weird how things work out. And they say property education is expensive and there's all these courses and stuff like that. Well, mine was definitely expensive. It cost me 30 grand, do you know what I mean, for a couple of phone calls. So, Mark Gomer from Progressive Property, I'm sure a few have heard of him. He talks about this thing called the entrance fee. Like when you join a new market, you don't know what you're doing, you've got to pay to get in it. Well, this was my entrance fee, 30 grand. So I lost 30k doing it. So that was not my proudest moment, but again, it's no big sob story or anything like that, but everybody in business and in property and whatever has challenges. It's not what happens to you, it's how you react to it. So if you just keep going and keep going through it, eventually things do start to get better. So if we fast forward to now, they made about £500,000 last year through the sourcing and trading business, which I'm relatively pleased with. As I said, I've done 300 property deals in total with kind of mix of strategies and stuff like that, which has been great. Built my own 6-figure cash pot for deals. So from losing that money to building up to being stupid with money to now kind of being sitting on a pile of cash that we can actually go and buy stuff with has been quite good. As well as fantastic relationships with joint venture partners, as I mentioned, which I'll kind of touch on in some other slides, where if I need money, it's a couple of WhatsApp messages and I get the money instantly because that's the relationship we've built up, which is really good. It's a really strong position to be in. And 96 deals we done last year. Robbie and I, who joined me in September, 96 deals, all single units, no portfolios, which we're reasonably happy with as well. So quite a lot of deals are being done, which has been good. And multiple businesses. Now, this is kind of a bit of a takeaway for people tonight, is when I was doing this SA stuff, all my eggs were in one basket. I was making good money. I never thought it was going to end. And then all of a sudden, as I said, the shutters come down and you're making no money. So I've always got this little kind of devil on my shoulder that's trying to de-risk everything and trying to have multiple sources of income just in case one of them does fail or something changes. You've got backups and you can still afford to pay your car in this scenario. So it's definitely something to think about. You're never as secure. Even if you're in a job, you're never as secure as what you actually think you are. So it's always trying to mitigate risk as much as possible when doing everything. And this one's a bit cheesy, but the best version of myself, I've never been happier. I'm enjoying work and relationships have never been better and stuff like that. So you can definitely get through kind of struggles. Everybody has challenges. It's just how you react to them and just keep going, really, is the biggest takeaway from that. So you'll be glad to hear that's enough about me. Hopefully it's given you a little bit of background to kind of what's brought me to this point. And we're going to get into the topic tonight, which is a little bit about kind of trading and stuff like that as well. So the topic's obviously why you should not hold property. So there's a little bit of caveat to this. As I mentioned, it's not applicable for everybody, but I'll explain what I mean. So, just shout out anyone, why do people actually hold property then? Just anybody shout it out. There you go. Anyone else? Cash flow. That'll do. Perfect. We'll take them. Next slide, Paul. So, income, first and foremost. We're buying it for income. We're buying it because it pays, so a tenant pays your rent every single month. Generational wealth, which is kind of capital appreciation, to supplement their pension. To pass to their kids is a big one we get, buying properties for the kid when it turns 18. To leave their jobs or to have more time. That tends to be the main reason, in my opinion, that people are looking to buy property, to kind of better their life, to better their financial circumstances. So typical buy to let, so what I'm talking about today can only really help you if we're looking at these two main ones. So it can definitely help your income. It's not really going to build you generational wealth. It's not going to help you supplement your pension. You're not going to be able to pass it to your kids, or you kind of will, but it will definitely be able to help you leave your job and give you more time if that's what it is you're looking to do. It's one of the things we get kind of told all the time is people are looking to go full-time in property or go part-time at their job or whatever it is. So this will definitely be able to help you. So a typical buy to let them, do 25% deposit. Everybody should know that. You need 25% down as a minimum if you're buying it with a buy-to-let mortgage. You need 8% additional dwelling supplement now, as Lindsay mentioned before. When it went up from 4 to 6, again, I thought the world was ending. I thought my life was over, my business was in ruin. And then when it went from 6 to 8, nobody seems to give a shit. Everybody's just cracking on regardless, isn't it? So it just out of interest, is anybody actually been put off buying property just because it's went up a couple of percent in additional dwelling supplement? Any hands up? No, I didn't think you'd be at a property event if you did, to be honest. But yeah, so 8% ADS, it's crazy. I'm not worried about it at all. Buyer demand for me and my business has never been higher. The only thing that I'm slightly worried about is some of the Edinburgh stuff we do, where obviously it's bigger amounts of money over the LBTT threshold and stuff like that. It can be quite a lump of money. So that's the only thing I'm slightly nervous about. You've got to deal with tenants, which is Lindsay's favourite thing to do. Costly repairs, and people always say if a boiler goes, that's your year's cash flow and everything like that. So these are just some of the negatives. It's not all negative, otherwise I wouldn't be in a job, thankfully. You've got void periods. We had quite a lot of properties sitting empty over the Christmas period through the letting agencies. You've got to pay mortgages when you're not getting an income. So those are kind of some of the things to think about. But on the plus side, you've got cash flow. So normally, like if you're buying something and you're remortgaging it and you're re-leveraging, normally we're looking at about £300 a month cash flow with the interest rates. Obviously, sometimes it can be a lot more. If it's a lot less, you should maybe be a little bit concerned just in case the interest rates go up and things like that, as they have done recently. You've still got 25% equity in the property. This is a big one. Even if you refinance, 25% of that's still yours. If you ever sell it, you can release that. As well as capital growth that you get on it. If it goes up 5% a year, 10% a year, you're building wealth that way. You're creating a long-term vision. You're building a portfolio for the future, for your kids and stuff like that. And as we've mentioned, you can supplement your pension and you're not as reliant on one source of income if you've got properties, which is kind of some of the pros. That's what most people are looking at when they're looking to buy stuff. So kind of negatives versus pros then. Anything else, Barry? No? I thought you were shaking your head at me. So one of the things, this is a great phrase, it's coined by a lot of different experienced property people that I speak to and others, is you can't eat equity. And in like sort of 2008, when people lost stuff, they had big portfolios, they're worth millions of pounds and stuff like that on paper, but you can't go down to your local supermarket and buy a pint of milk with equity. So as long as it's a nice thing to have, and you can maybe leverage against it, and it gives you nice security, but you can't really do anything with it unless you crystallise it. So it's when we are looking at properties for clients, we're mainly looking at cash flow, and everything else is a bonus. Capital growth is a bonus over and above that. So with that in mind, I'm going to bring out my first case study. Now, as Barry already said earlier, if you were at the Edinburgh PIN meeting, some of these properties are the same because I was lazy and just copied them off a previous PowerPoint. But this is one that I've done myself, and they're all deals I've done myself, but in Forfar recently, so it goes through on Friday. So this is quite a good example about what I'm talking about, so hopefully it comes through. So this is a 2-bed lower cottage flat, so like a 4 in a block in Forfar, up above Dundee. I've never been there in my life. It was brought to me by an estate agent off market. But yeah, actually I went up there to get the keys, but other than that, I've never been there before this, I meant. So the home report on it was 75k in its current condition, 2-bed, decent enough condition. I've got a couple of slides. The purchase price in our scenario is 39,999, which is obviously under the stamp duty threshold. It's 46% below market value as it stands. I calculated that if we're doing a full refurb in it, it would probably need about 22 grand spent on it. Now, I don't have any tradesmen that work up in Forfar, so we'd have to pull people in, so it would have cost me more and stuff like that, so it would have been a bit of a hassle. So all in, I think it was in for 64,500, including legal fees and anything else that's included. And this is it here. So obviously this bottom one, it comes with all this ground at the front. It was quite a large bit of the garden at the back. When I went to see it, the guy was saying, oh, you could build another house in the garden, the usual stuff people tend to say. But decent enough house in a good area from what I understand. And you can see here, it's not in the worst condition. This photo probably does it a little bit justice. You see the kind of DIY paintwork and stuff like that. But it was probably like a 6 or 7 out of 10. But in order to get the end value, which I calculated about 90 grand, it probably needed about 22k spent on it. I thought it pretty much needed everything. So with these ex-council areas, quite often there's like a ceiling price in the area in terms of what it's going to revalue at. So I reckon this one would have been worth about 90k, done up to a good standard, which 75% loan to value is 67,500 back out the deal. So that's what you would got. Maybe a little bit less with mortgage, broker fees and stuff like that I didn't include. So all in all, you'd be looking at all money out, every single penny you've put into it, plus 3 grand. So who here would buy this deal just out of interest? A free house plus 3k, yeah?
Plus the equity you still got in it.
Plus the equity, that's right.
Not in Forfar.
Well, so I didn't keep a hold of it. The sale goes through in 2 days' time, which you'll be sort of, I'll kind of show you my thought process behind it. So I didn't even tell you what the cash flow was on it. So we've just said you can't eat equity, and we don't even know what the cash flow, and some people are saying they're buying it, and the cash flow is not terrible. Yes?
Sorry, my question is, how do you get a home report of 75, a place that's got a home report of 75 for 39,991? How do you do that?
Wait a wee minute and I'll tell you where it gets even better in a wee second. And I'm quite a lucky person, I think, so things do tend to work for me, right? So the rent on this was about 650. So by the time you pay a letting agent, building insurance, maybe a little bit away for voids and maintenance and stuff like that, it was spitting out about £217 a month cash flow. So it's a little bit low to keep a hold of, in my opinion. 2,600 a year. 75 miles away from where I stay. It's even further away from my office. It's probably right on the cusp of where we would take on management units for the letting agency, so I'll probably have to outsource that. Plus, you know, ex-council area, nothing against it, but you could have tenant issues just looking at the demographic, maintenance, void periods. I would have had to chuck another 22 grand into it. So all this kind of stuff puzzled together just means it was not a good option to buy. And also in these kind of areas, you're not going to get massive amounts of capital growth unless you hold it for 20 years. So you just have to kind of factor all these points into it. It's not just a case of buying a property, let's just keep a hold of it because it's free. So what I decided to do instead was just trade it back on. And this is kind of the common theme of tonight. So as I mentioned, I had a home report of 75k. Now, the week that I was due to complete on the Friday, the previous owner phoned me up and said, look, I totally forgot to say, I'm really, really sorry. There's a brand new heating system going in on Friday, the day that you buy it. Do you want to phone up and cancel? I was like, no, just leave it. Don't worry, it'll be more hassle than it's worth. So the council was putting a brand new heating system in the property for free because the previous owner was on like some kind of benefits. So there's like, those schemes that they used to do. So they done that. So I thought, brand new gas meter, brand new radiators, brand new boiler, everything like that. So I actually got a new home report done on it at 80 grand to reflect the fact that it's got this brand new heating system. So I thought, okay, brilliant, we're adding a little bit of value before I sell on, which is great. So obviously I'm in at 39.99, so it's 50p in the pound, a couple of fees, purchasing costs, etc. And it cost me 2 grand to sell it, and we sold it for £58,000 in about 3.5-4 weeks after that. So it's total net profit was just over 14 grand, and it actually took a little bit longer because it was over Christmas and stuff like that, so it goes through on Friday. But basically, in a matter of weeks, we've made a decent chunk of cash from it. There's not been any work required. All I done was a couple of emails, a couple of phone calls, electronically sent the money to the lawyer, and then drove up once to collect the key and put a key box outside. And that's been my involvement in it. No hassle at all, no stress. We actually managed to relocate the previous owner of this one to another property through the letting agency, which is quite good about having these multiple different exits, because if I never had that, they were struggling to find somewhere to move to. So it might not actually went through. So just having the full puzzle made a big difference. absolutely no stress. I've actually been through quite a lot in business. So I don't take stress that badly. I'm quite robust now. But stuff like this, you just do all day, every day. So as I mentioned, it was 2,600 a year in terms of cash flow, and I've just made 14 grand in a space of weeks. So it was like 5.5 years worth of money. So I would have had to hold that property for 5.5 years to make the same amount of money as I made in probably 6 or 7 weeks just by trading it on, with all the kind of negatives and stuff like that could have went wrong from it. So it's just about it's almost like a bit of a toolbox, I think, in property. Like you find a deal and then you look in your toolbox and decide what to do with it. Do you buy it yourself? Do you flip it? Do you keep it? Do you source it on? Do you refer it to auction? And then you just kind of monetize every exit as well. But 5.5 years worth of money. So I'm 25 just now, so I would have been over 30 by the time I would have benefited from this property. Now, obviously, you've got it for the rest of your life, and there's loads of benefits, etc. But I'll be in a different position when I'm 30 than I am today, if that makes sense. I'd rather the cash now rather than wait 5.5 years, if that makes sense. So we're talking about trading activity is what I'm talking about when I say don't hold property. You don't have to hold property. You don't have to hold every single property is what I mean. So we're talking about trading and actually making income from property that's not coming from rent. So, as I said to Pete earlier, this is completely accidental. Pete's actually in the room today. But did anybody watch this podcast? I think it's the most recent one of the Scottish Property Podcast. Pete's a client of mine, and one of the things they talk about in the podcast is obviously about Pete's story and how many properties he's bought and stuff like that. But it's all of a result of his trading business. So Pete's obviously got a successful trading business on the side. Next slide, Paul. And that's what he's built up first. So something, a lot of people say, Stephen, Nick, and people and on this podcast is build a trading business first and then use the profits or the income from that trading business to invest into property. That seems to be the most logical way to do it. And that way you're not relying on portfolio income. You've got a separate income that's generating you, revenue and obviously profits that you can use to then go and buy to let portfolio as well. Or you could sit on a beach somewhere, if you don't fancy doing it, which is probably a decent option just now. It's like -2 or something like that. So there's a couple of caveats to this, obviously. If you already have millions in the bank, you probably don't need to think about this or listen to me, definitely not. You've already got a successful trading business, which obviously a lot of people in the room do, or a high-paying job or a job that you particularly enjoy. And these kind of people are obviously my ideal clients as well. So that's kind of what we're looking for. But obviously, if you've already got this set up, then you don't need to listen to what I'm saying going forward. So I can hear some people saying in the room, we kind of get questions like this all the time on Instagram and stuff like that. But it's all very well for you, Matt, doing deals like this, but I don't have 40 grand. Now, lots of people in the room will have 40 grand, but I certainly didn't when I got started. And also, I don't have access to 46% below market value deals that you mentioned, which is obviously the main difficulty is not having the money or not having access to the deals. So I was thinking about this earlier, but if we're talking about building a trading business before we invest in property, and you're really serious about property, and you're passionate about it, and you decide this is what you want to do, wouldn't it make sense to build your trading business in property? Doing something in the sphere of property that's going to allow you to get access to networks and understand how it all works and things like that, but actually build it in property as opposed to separate. So the kind of things we could do is obviously a estate agency, letting agency. If you build one of these successful businesses, you're going to have surplus money to invest in property. Lots of tradesmen, clients of mine have got trades businesses that do really, really well. Project manager, finance broker, property developer, if you want to go guns blazing, or property sourcer, which is obviously what I do. So just kind of take you through a couple of steps and stuff. And I genuinely believe that everybody that's in property should have some element of sourcing in their business, because inevitably you're either going to run out of money and have to sell the deal on, or heads just totally went blank. Or across deals that don't suit your investment criteria or your portfolio. Don't know what happened there. So again, this is only really relevant for property sources, what I'm going to talk about. But to be able to go and make 3, 5, 6, however many thousands of pounds off sourcing deals to clients, that all goes back in the pot to go and invest in more property or trade more property, whatever it is you want to do. So, who in the room's actually used a property sourcer then? A few hands going up. Quite a lot actually, yeah. And obviously, just talking about sourcing, I'm conscious we've got some new people. It's January, everybody's buzzing, but kind of what is it? So the kind of pros of sourcing is obviously you can generate large income. I don't really know another business where you can turn up at work on a Monday morning and make nothing and go home and make, tens of thousands of pounds potentially. The average fee is between 3 and 5 grand, sometimes more if it's a better deal. So you can generate big chunks of cash that you can go and use to buy properties, which is exactly what I've done. And probably more important than that is you get access to the best deals. Like if you build your network and systems and marketing efforts and stuff like that to attract deals into your life, once you've got the deals, you can decide what you want to do with them. You can buy it yourself, or you can sell it to clients, or you can do whatever you want to do. You can raise money for it, but everything in property starts with a deal. If you don't have deals, then there's nothing there to do. It's as simple as that. Grow a powerful network as well. The amount of people that I've met through starting a sourcing business or even a property business in general, but since we're talking about sourcing, clients and stuff like that, they've introduced me to people. You can start to grow a powerful network that's going to bring you deals, or potentially you're going to be able to get money from. And offshoot businesses as well. So from sourcing, because you're doing lots of activity, as I said, you can start a state agency, you can start letting agency, you can project manage deals for clients, and lots of things. It's good fun as well. It's exciting, fast paced. In my opinion, it's probably, I could obviously be biased by saying this since it's what I do every day, but I think it's probably the best way to create income in property if you're looking to get started, because you probably need 10 buy-to-lets cash flowing at $250 a month to make one low-end property sourcing fee. So would you rather try and do one deal every 4 weeks, or try and build up a 10-unit portfolio? What's going to be quicker if you want to leave your job or if you want to supplement your income? So it brings me on to my case study too. So if you don't have money and you don't have access to deals, obviously you can start a sourcing business, which is where I'm going with this. So this was a deal, I spoke about this one at PIN, but this was a couple of years ago in Mayfield Drive in Armadale. So it's not like the best area of Armadale, but for investment purposes, it works quite nice. So it was a 3-bed lower villa. It came through my advertising efforts. The woman was in a little bit of financial difficulty. The market value of the property was easily 85 grand, probably more like 90. She said she needed a certain figure to clear off her mortgage. So we agreed on 45k, which again is nearly half price. In this example, the refurb cost 25k. I project managed it for the client, so I know that. And the total money in was £74,200. You need just under 75 grand to buy this deal, all cash. So this is it. So as you can see, it's not the worst thing in the world. It's actually a really nice property. So just before the camera here, there was like a big driveway, there was a nice back garden, 3 bedrooms. I think it's like a 4-block cottage flat. You can see the condition of the place is not amazing, but it's by no means terrible. It's missing a bath panel and stuff like that. And the kitchen's in decent enough order, it's not falling apart. So we've done a brand new renovation on this one. So quite a decent thing. I wish I could get this every single week because they just sell like hotcakes. And we actually manage this one through the letting agency as well. So it's been rent ever since, which has been great. So the new market value for this one was 100 grand. You probably get a little bit more for that now, to be honest with you, but 100 grand, which means at 75% loan to value, excluding a couple of mortgage broker costs and stuff like that, you'd be all money out plus £800 a month. £800? £800 in your hand, right? So slightly different to the 4 one. This has got a nice big chunky rent on it. So this rent is currently £950, which is pretty good going. So this one cash flows at £450 a month. Which is a pretty good deal. So all money out plus £800, plus you get 450 quid a month. So again, we'd probably be looking to buy this one now, to be totally honest with you. So it's 5.5 grand a year, roughly, just under. So the market value was 85. I agreed to deal at 45 with the seller. Never spent any money during the refurb for my own money. It didn't cost me a thing to do this deal because I never bought it. We sold it to a client from London, a bespoke London client wanted to buy a property in this area. Sold it to them for £61,000 plus a 3 grand sourcing fee, which meant there was a £16,000 sales fee on it. I wish they were all like this, but sadly this is probably one of the best deals I've ever done, which is why I keep talking about it. So made 16 grand at the back end plus a 3 grand sourcing fee, so we're up to 19. And then I project managed the deal for the client as well for £2,000. So I made £21,000 from this deal, not using any of my own money. It literally took 4 weeks to complete. And basically what I'd done in this scenario was I bought 4 years worth of money in 4 weeks. So if I bought that, I'd renovated it, I'd refinanced it, got all money out, would have taken me 4 years to get the same amount of money through the rent as I made in 4 weeks just by structuring it in the right way and just selling it on to an investor. So there's lots of different ways you can do once you get good at this. So what would happen if you did get good at this then, in terms of finding the deals and negotiating with sellers, having avenues to get off-market deals, building your network and stuff like that? Do you think you would be able to attract private investors? Probably is the answer. Like, if you've got the skill set and the deals coming in, it's very, very easy to find money. Finding money in my line of business is the easiest thing ever compared to finding the deals, which is the hardest part. So, moving into another case study. This is one that I'm doing at the moment. We've got a couple of photos in the next slide. Should be on the market on the 20th, all being well. Had a couple of delays over Christmas and New Year. So it's Pilton Avenue. So this one again was sourced off market through my sourcing business. This one was actually through our Facebook advertising campaign. And basically they'd had it in the family for so long, the chap had died, and then he said the grandson could stay in it for a period of years. He had moved out and they just wanted rid of it. Now, interestingly, with this one, when I went out to see it originally, I thought it was probably worth I'll touch on this in a little minute, but I thought it was probably worth 160, 165. So I offered them 130 and they said, no way, it's far too low. And they got another couple of companies out at the back of me and they offered even lower. So then she came back to me and said, okay, we could probably do something. So I agreed 137, which I'll touch on in a later slide, but just keep that in mind. So this is fully investor funded. So from getting the skill set and to find deals and piece them together and negotiate and manage trades and stuff like that from my sourcing activity, we're now able to go and buy deals fully investor funded without spending any money. So as I'm sure you guys will know my thoughts on loan agreements after being scammed of 30k, all the investments that we do are first charge secured. So the investor's money is safe against this property. We nearly fucked it up, to be totally honest with you. So this was my first time working with this private investor, and his solicitor took that long to do the first charge security paperwork. It was just pushing back the date of entry. And then I got a call one day, she said, look, if it's not done by 12 o'clock tomorrow, the game's over, you're not getting the property, we're just going to put it on the market. I was devastated because I worked on this one for quite a few months. And then just at the last minute, I had to offer them more money to secure the deal. And when you offer someone more money, most of the time they take it, thankfully. So this is it here. It's a lower villa, 3-bedroom. It's got a big extension on the back of it. You can see it's pretty dated condition inside, but it's definitely not the worst thing I've ever been in. Popular area of Edinburgh, it's affordable and stuff like that. It's got a kind of driveway there where you can park your car in a back garden and stuff like that. So decent enough thing. Should do pretty well out of it, I think. But yeah, so I thought it was going to be worth 160, 165, and I never put any weight at all on the fact that it had this big extension on it. So when the surveyor came out, now when I'm buying something off market, quite often, especially if there's an investor involved, we'll get a home report on it. So we will instruct and pay for the home report, which means we get full control over it, which basically means the seller doesn't see it. So really, really important. But the surveyor came back and said 195 is what he reckoned it was worth. So I think, fucking, I've got this 137. This is a great deal. I didn't even think it was going to be that great. And then I had to pay them £8,000 more to make sure they didn't pull out and then go and put it on the market because the solicitor messed up that badly and just delays. So £8,000 more literally for a couple of days extra on completion, which was not ideal. So we spent about 25k on the refurb. It should, as I say, be done. It should be on the market on Monday. And we're probably looking at a 230 home report on it. So hopefully we can sell it for as close to home report as possible, which will be a net profit of well over 50 grand, which is pretty good for none of my own money, just from purely getting the skill set in finding deals and piecing them together. So how can people do the same? How can people emulate this? It all comes down to the skill set for me. And people think, even with Facebook advertising and property and stuff like that, is they think if you pay this money to Mark Zuckerberg that automatically all these deals are going to come to your door. But actually all you get is a name and a phone number, and then the skill set to be able to convert that into a deal is actually quite vast, and it just comes with repetition. So the most important thing about this is just finding the deals and getting good at it, whether it's on the market, whether it's through your network. I think we get about 70% of deals we done last year were through other people, which is good because it doesn't cost you any money to get it in the door. Sales ability, so learning how to sell, and it's not like one of these cheesy American things where you're Jordan Belfort at the front of the stage or anything like that, but the ability to sell yourself, selling the exit strategy to the investor, selling yourself to the seller to get the deal done. Networking, obviously everyone's here today probably looking to build their property network, but as I just said, 70% of the stuff we do, so 70% of 96 deals came from people that we know, other people that have brought us deals last year. So it's really, really powerful. Hard work, obviously you don't get anywhere without working hard, unfortunately, which is kind of given. And one of the big things about this that kind of stays true for me is about valuing your time. Like, I see so many people getting involved in stuff that just isn't worth their time. So I'll only try and do what's called income generating tasks. But even the likes of that Forfar example, like, I could have put that on the market through my own estate agency. We could have took inquiries and done the viewings and stuff like that, and I probably would have got more money for it, because 80 grand home report to 58k sales fee, and also it wouldn't have cost me any money. But it was so much simpler for me just to put it to auction, pay them £1,000, and then I'm on to the next. It's not about sucking as much profit from every deal as you can. It's about trying to get a nice momentum build up and just keep the train rolling in terms of deals, as opposed to trying to maximise returns on just one individual property, in my opinion. And get around people that are doing what you want to do. Simple as that. Like, the biggest success I've had is just from emulating other people that are doing what I want to do, and, you know, spending time with them, getting coffees with them, joining network groups, go to events like this, and just get around people that want to do, you know, do stuff that you want to do. Simple as that. So, final case study, and again, I've spoken about this one for about 13 months solid, but it's just quite a good deal. And again, it's just about kind of thinking outside the box. So this is a 3-bed semi-detached in Birdie House. I'm actually getting sick of this one. I'm going to have to change it for the next thing I do, I think. But I had a 160 grand home report. It was owned by a sort of older woman. They bought it for 30 grand, like, I don't know, 1999 or something like that. Didn't have any mortgage on it. Husband sadly passed away during COVID, and she just did not want the burden of it anymore. It was a rental property. In our example, so we could have bought it for 100k. It was non-standard construction, so when we went to buy it, my solicitor actually emailed me saying, I don't know if you should buy this, I don't think you'll be able to sell it, and just remember that for the coming slides. So this is it here, pretty nice thing. I didn't actually know it was steel frames. I think most of them in that estate in Birdie House are all non-standard construction, just to keep an eye out for it. I ended up doing a deal with this one here actually. So I ended up selling this deal here as well to a client from London, the same guy that bought it. And I had an amazing deal set up in this one. I think I had it for 115. I was going to sell it to him for 130. And then I was just about to meet the woman to sign the contract. And she says, I'm really sorry. It was through the estate and I'm going on with Waterman's. I was like, no, I just lost like 20 grand on this deal. And I managed to phone the girl at the time that used to work at Waterman's that I knew, and we still managed to do the deal, but I made substantially less. So I was devastated. But I sold two literally around the corner from each other. But they're amazing properties, mate. Amazing properties, and I know. Aye, so they are good. Like, just is that done? Aye, so we've seen the standard of the property. So it was in maybe 7 out of 10 condition. It wasn't that great. So my strategy before this was just always flipping properties, like buying them, spending 30, 40 grand on the refurb, and then reselling them as a nice finished product. But quite often in property, just going back to that toolbox thing I was talking about before, is you kind of have to think outside the box a lot of the time. Like, is this going to be worth your time and further investment to do the project? So in this example, the refurb would have been about 30 grand. The windows were not in the best condition, needed a kitchen, bathroom, full decoration. And I worked out our end value would have been about 190k. Now, this wasn't too long after the interest rates went up. So interest rates on non-standard construction properties are more expensive anyway. So the more expensive you make the house, the less affordable you make it for people. So I just thought there's no point in doing it, because basically what we're doing in this example is we're spending 30k to make 30k. So you'd be as well just selling it on as is. What's the point in saving yourself the time and hassle and the money? So we made the same profit as if we just sold it straight on. In far less time with less money. Simple as that. It's the return, and obviously hassle as well. Dealing with tradesmen is kind of bane of my life a lot of the time. So that was it. So what we've done is it was worth 160 rather. We bought it for 100 grand. We sold it for 157. The day that we completed on it, I already had it on Rightmove. So we were taking inquiries on it before, and it was just relentless. I was like, oh my God, we can't lose in this one. Took a phone call the same night, verbally accepted an offer that night at 157. And we sold it 5 weeks and 2 days later. So 47.5 grand net profit in 5 weeks, which was...
That is a phenomenal deal, so I can understand why you're talking
I know.
about it.
So that completed about a year ago. I'm still talking about it just because it was probably because I didn't expect it to go that well. And when it went that well, I was like, fucking hell, this is brilliant. I'm not doing a refurb ever again.
So if that's a phenomenal deal, on average, when you're doing the same type of things, what are you making?
So probably that Forfar one's quite a good example. So it's a lot less money in, but you're making sort of 14 grand or something like that in a period. It's decent money. It's decent money for no work. So again, it all comes down to valuing your time on stuff. Like that Forfar one, except for the drive up there, I would have spent probably half an hour on it.
And you get most of your leads from Facebook ads?
Well, 70% of the deals we do is from other people. So what I tend to find happens is we get most of our like kind of ordinary deals, if you will, or most of our deals through our network. So like agents, letting agents that we work with, people in my property coaching community that are outsourcing deals, people that I know, landlords that are selling properties and stuff like that. And then the very best deals that I seem to get all come through Facebook, because you're sitting down with the person, you're identifying their problem, and you can kind of cater to that. That tends to be where the best stuff comes from.
The house one and the other one where you bought it for under the scam duty,
Yes.
but it was worth 75. Were they both direct to vendor?
Yes, they were both. The Forfar one wasn't through Facebook, but they're both direct to vendor, which is kind of how you get the best deals, to be totally honest with you, because you don't have someone involved.
You know what the vendor's position is and paying them what they need to get. out of
Exactly.
the situation.
So what I'll normally do is just exactly what you said there, is just frame it in a way, what do they need? So it's not what do you want for the property, it's what's the situation and what do you actually need. So that one in Armadale, I think they had like 35 grand left on their mortgage. And she said, look, if I could get 10 grand in my hand to walk away, I would do it. So I thought, okay, that's 45k, let's get it done. It's simple as that. So it's just,
So, sorry.
it's all right. No.
So do you think it's just like the naivety of the vendor not realising what they could get if they went on the market?
Not so much that, but more just the desperation of the situation that they find themselves in. Like a lot of these people for these very, very deep discounting deals are like weeks away from getting the property taken off them. So,
They're trying to sell it to you,
and make 10 grand on top of the mortgage, or
just have it taken away from me.
or not make anything, get it took off me, black mark on my credit, can't get a phone bill the rest of my life, that kind of thing. So it's, and the weirdest thing about this is, although it sounds harsh to be buying someone's house is half the price of what it's worth, these are the people that are most grateful to you and say thank you so much if it wasn't for you, and they give you reviews on your Facebook page and stuff like that. So it's kind of a weird feeling. You're actually genuinely doing a good service, even though you're kind of not, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Sorry, excuse me, crap.
Of course.
So when you're then funding this, so the deal's gonna go through, right? Let's do it. Are you using your own funds or?
Totally depends on that toolbox thing. So it depends what the price is. So if it's, something like that where it's half price and I've got the cash there, I'll use my own funds. Or if it's still a good deal that we can flip, I'll maybe get investor funds involved. Or if it's not the kind of thing we tend to buy or whatever it may be, we'll put it out to clients that we work with regularly, we've got a good relationship with, that know, that I've got trust in. Do you know what I mean? It's not like we're going to put it out on this big massive mailing list and hope somebody clicks on it, which we do for stock. But for deals that are really good, we just send it to people we know and we trust and they trust us and stuff like that. It seems to work the best way. So it just depends on where it is, what it is, and what the price is.
Right.
Yeah. But really, everybody that's in property should be fundamentally looking to buy properties for themselves first, and then kind of take it down the pecking order of, refer to auction probably being the last, if that makes sense. You've got lots of different exits.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the key to monetize everything, particularly if it's off market, that is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. I think I've actually missed it a few slides. I must have made an error. I was going to talk about my first couple of deals and all that, but it's be boring anyway for you guys. So just in summary of tonight then, the number one way to build wealth is holding property. So it's not that holding property is bad, and if your circumstances allow it and you've got the cash there, or maybe you've got another job or a business, then that's definitely what you should be doing. Otherwise I wouldn't have a job, is what I just said. But the number one way to make income through property is by trading activity. So whether that's sourcing properties to clients, or doing flips, or trading properties straight on through auction, as I've just showed you there, that's the number one way to do it, in my opinion. So you can find me on Instagram. I don't know how I'm doing for time actually, but you can get me on Instagram. Well, yeah, I missed out a few slides actually, which is a bit annoying, but we'll just go for it anyway. Must have been. I don't know, I've done something. So Instagram's the main place to get me if anybody wants more contact. And also my property coaching community is on Instagram as well. We do quite a lot of decent content on there, which is better than my photos of like 30 grand flats and stuff like that. So that's where to get me. And then I know we took a few questions there, but if anybody's got any other questions, more than happy to take questions and see if I can add any value that way.
So did you source any of these deals on? I mean, obviously, if you're going to be making search and you're going to keep it.
Yeah.
So what sort of deals do you source on, or what do you charge? Like, if I was to buy something off of you, what would be the sort of cost that
Yeah.
you'd be expecting?
So I don't tend to source flips in that respect. The reason being is I tend to find flips is like they're either really good deals that we'll buy in ourselves, or they're too tight. So like I always give the example, like if I've got a flip that's got 10 grand in it for saying you buy it and you think you're going to make 10 grand, and then you spend more in the refurb, or you uncover some woodworm or something like that, it's 2 grand, or damp or something like that, your 10 grand's then 8. And then maybe you get a down value, maybe you've got to chop away a little bit on the sales price. So I wouldn't be comfortable putting my reputation to something with knowing that in mind. There has to be quite a big buffer just to anything going wrong. So it tends to be like buy to let, BRR, kind of refinance deals that we do.
So BRR, not necessarily you're buying it just for investors to
Yeah.
look at the yield. You will sell something where you know what the refurb costs are.
Yeah.
What's the price do you charge for that?
So it totally depends on the deal. So I just based on the strength of the deal. If the deal's the best deal in the world, we'll charge more. If it's like the numbers are a bit tighter, we'll charge less. So it's normally like 3 to 5 grand in terms of the buyer's fee.
How you know your rate is competitive?
Rate in terms of
Like your fee.
it's the market tells you. If you put a deal out at 5 grand and nobody buys it, then you can put it out at 4 grand and 3 grand. But because we work mainly on a bespoke basis, we know the clients, we know what they're looking for, so we'll source the order. But it's the thing with this is that the deals normally sell themselves. It's not necessarily my skill set and I'm this amazing salesman or anything like that. If you've got a property in Edinburgh at 20% below market value, it's a good thing. People are going to want to buy it, so you can charge a bigger fee because the deal is better, if that makes sense. So I had a couple of deals that I wanted to touch on. The first one that I ever done, BRR deal that is, was a little house in Galashiels. And I'd just been consuming stuff online. Like YouTube was like the best place on the planet for me. Like because I was working like these kind of agency jobs and stuff like that, I had periods where I wasn't working. So I was literally just sitting in front of the laptop or books, podcasts, audio books, just consuming literally anything. Facebook groups as well actually have been really good. And the first deal I ever done was this house in Galashiels in Langley. And it was on the market for a wee while and it was marketed quite poorly. And I'd seen it for a while and there was a tenant in it. So like nobody was touching it because it was like 110 grand home report and the rent was like 400 quid or something like that, as tends to be the case. And I noticed on the home report, and this is kind of a tip for some people, there was a limited company name as the owner of the property. So I copy and pasted the limited company name and put it into LinkedIn. And then I found the director that way and got in touch with him and got speaking to him. And it turns out the tenant had actually moved out, but it was still shown on Rightmove as tenanted. So we managed to do a deal with him that way and just kind of spiraled from there. So that was a co-sourcing deal that we done. So before I'd done any deals myself, I was doing deals with other people. So there used to be a guy, he's not dead or anything like that, but Joseph Tott used to be quite big when I was getting started. So this is like 2020, 2021. And he had like a big mailing list of investors and stuff like that. And I sent him the deal and he sold it. And then that was it. So I think I made like 900 quid or something like that off that first deal. But then it's just a gradual progression of doing one deal and then you've got a case study and you learn a little bit. And then you do another deal and then you've got another case study and then you learn a little bit more. And just by speaking with people and immersing yourself into it, before you know it, you look back a few years down the line and think, how the fuck did I get here? Like, how did this even happen? And then the other deal that I wanted to talk on was my first flip. So like, I'm a big believer in like the harder you work, the luckier you get. Like the likes of that 4-for-1, for example, I got an extra 5 grand because it was a free heating system put in. Like when the fuck does that ever happen? Do you know what I mean? And my first flip, I used to play football with a guy and his dad was in property. He's actually a good friend of mine now, like an older guy. He's been doing this a while. And I got chatting to him randomly through this viewing agent at a flat that I was looking at on the market in Gala. Like I probably viewed properties for 6 months. Through estate agents and didn't make any offers on them because I just didn't know what I was doing. The market was really good and I didn't want to get rejected and stuff like that. So I never made any offers. But one day I was speaking to this viewing agent. He says, oh, you should speak to such and such. They're in property. They've got a portfolio. And it was this guy that I played football with, dad rather. And I met him and got friendly with him. I think I sold one of his properties and he introduced me to one of his friends. And got speaking to him, the guy had a business and he used to take out like a 6-figure sum every year in dividends. And he says, look, when I get this 6-figure sum out in May, we can maybe do some property stuff together. Like you bring the deal and I'll fund it. And I thought, okay, this is brilliant. This is exactly what I'm looking for. And then never really heard much about it again. And then one day he popped up to me and he said, look, I've sold the business. So they sold the company for like 8 figures, I think. So that's, I don't know, 10 million, 20 million, whatever it is, I don't know. And I suspect when you've got that much money in the bank, you're desperately looking for ways to invest it because you're losing money all the time through inflation. And just as it happens, someone had put me in touch with a guy that was looking to sell their house in Selkirk, which is in the Borders as well. And I couldn't get this guy on the phone for like 2 weeks. I was just trying him, he was just dinging me, I was texting him, I was emailing him, just couldn't get hold of him. And one day I was sitting at my mum's house and I went to phone him and didn't answer. So I phoned him again back to back and he answered. And he was saying again, same scenario as what we were just talking about, he was going to get repossessed. And I was like, look, I'll be there in a couple of hours. I went that afternoon and we worked out a deal. So basically it was a 3-bed end terrace in Selkirk. There's photos and stuff on my Instagram. And he goes to me, and this is just pure fluke. This has never happened to me since, by the way. He says, look, he was going to get repossessed. His mortgage was like 65 grand or something like that. And he goes to me, look, I know it's worth 100 grand, but I'm up shit creek here. If you give me 75 grand, I'll walk away. Like 25% discount straight off the bat. And then I goes, would you take 70 for it? And he goes, no, like just try to be cheeky. And then I tried to do 72 and a half, like just trying to win the deal. Like, and back then, like in 2022, the market was like red hot. Like everything was going way over home report. You couldn't get a sniff of anything. So to be offered a 25% discounted house right off the bat was like just pure fluke. So I was like to myself, like, what am I doing? So I just said, okay, let's do 75k. And then we agreed the deal and that was it. So I went back to the guy that said he'd never got all this money burning a hole in his pocket. And would you like to do the deal? And he looked at it and he says, yeah, of course, let's do it. So weirdly, when I got the home report done on it, it came back at 110. So it was like an even better deal than what I thought it was. But you can see there, like, the stars just align. Like, from me speaking to that guy, a random on the market viewing, connecting with the guy that I used to play football with, his dad, who then put me in touch with his friend, who then sold his business and was desperate to do stuff. And then this deal coming out of nowhere, the guy says, yeah, I'll give you it for 25% off. Like, it's the harder you work, the luckier you get. So, like, the more activity and stuff you do, the more momentum you build, things tend to spiral. And as I said before, you look back, you think, God, how did this happen? If that makes sense. But it's just like making little incremental stages throughout, and then you look back and here you are. And that's it, really, to be honest. It's not any kind of big, I've never done any like property training or anything like that. It's just all been learning from other people, to be totally honest with you. And then, as I said, online stuff. So hopefully that kind of answers your question in a roundabout way. Probably 10 deals we've done with him just alone, but he's funded everything. So if you think about standard flip deal, you're looking at 100 grand to maybe 100 and 200 grand in. And it's literally a case of just pulling out the phone and doing a WhatsApp message. This is what it is. This is what I think it's worth. And he comes by and says, yeah, let's do it. But obviously it wasn't like that on the first one. And he's obviously based overseas in Dubai now. So he just trusts me to do it. But it's like, you just get lucky through all these little things that you do, and before you know it, something happens, if you know what I mean. It's not like you don't just roll out of bed one day and somebody says, look, I've got 10 million quid to buy stuff. Do you want to buy stuff? So it's just kind of compounding, I think, isn't it? Yeah, 100%. So he funds everything, so it doesn't cost me a penny. The only thing it costs me is my fuel at the car to get there. So obviously we used to, it's a kind of favourable, but it's a fair percentage, shall we say. It's a fair. So we started off doing 50-50 and then it's changed slightly. So it's fair for what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. What are you going to say?
I was just going to say how many sort of investors do you work in your sort of?
Yeah, so we've probably got like 20 one-to-one clients, so we do on like a bespoke basis. So we've got a mailing list, like an email list, there's like, I don't know how many, is it 7,000 or something, Robbie, on there or something like that. And then we've got a WhatsApp community, but we tend to work just one-to-one with people. So we'll like sit down, identify what it is they're looking for, how many properties they're looking to buy, how much capital they've got to invest, that kind of thing. And then we'll just, once something comes in that suits their criteria, I'll just go directly to them. And then it's all kind of nice and it's easier work for us. They know what they're getting and stuff like that. So it's probably around about 20, which sounds like quite a lot, but when you're doing quite a lot of deals, people's money gets tied up for a period of months and then someone else becomes available and then, do you know what I mean? It's kind of like almost like a conveyor belt. So it tends to work quite well. But yeah, so probably around about 20.
Did you say you do commercial?
Sold a couple of shops, yeah. I mean, I sold one in Berwick actually, which is weird, which is in England. So I've probably sold like 5 or 6 shops, I think, over the last couple of years, just in the Borders, just from people that I know. And we sold one through the estate agency recently as well. But I sold one in Berwick that I put it onto auction. Somebody passed it to me and I put it onto auction, and then someone contacted me through, I can't remember, it was a weird story, but basically I made like 5 grand from a deal and it wasn't my deal and it wasn't my buyer, just like the way it came through. It was bizarre. But yeah, so a wee bit of commercial, but not a huge amount. Just, it's like an ad hoc stuff when stuff comes in. I don't think I have done tenanted. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, it's all been empty. Yeah, and it tends to be in the borders because we've got quite a big network and stuff like that down here. So, yeah, I've got another funny story about a commercial unit, but I'll not share that in front of everybody else. All good. Any questions? So more of the same, actually. It's a good question. So obviously with the different brands and stuff like that, although I'm not day-to-day involved in quite a lot of them, like the estate and letting agency, they're those kind of businesses for the future, if you know what I mean. So like we only sold like 20 odd properties last year through the estate agency, which is not a lot at all. But estate agency is kind of one of those localized businesses where it just takes years and years to build up your reputation. So I'm not doing anything different. It's just more of the same. So more deals, more clients, more source deals, buy more properties, and probably try to get to 200 properties sold, I think, by the end of the year between my own stuff, client stuff, and then agency stuff. Should be quite good.
Then start buying stuff yourself, or is it gauge option but better?
I've worked with quite a lot of older guys that have been doing this a while, like 25, 30 years, right? And not all of them, but a lot of them, they turn up and they're wearing Slazenger joggies and a polo shirt and they've got a wee pencil behind their ear and that. And I just think to myself, like, you're worth like 4 million quid on paper and they'll make really good money on rent and they've got a good, decent lifestyle, but not like what you'd think for being a multi-millionaire. So I don't know, it kind of just attracts. And then also when you're making really good money like that, it's hard to detach yourself. It's almost like a drug where stuff comes in. But I think probably with my funding partner, we might buy a couple of ASAs this year. And obviously just use fully investor funded, and then, because that's kind of more exciting, isn't it? But for now, I'm just going to focus for my own stuff, just trading and flipping, which is what this has been about. So hopefully it makes sense.
And would you still confident buying in Scotland?
100%. So as I was saying before, like when it went from 4% to 6%, I was like shitting myself, and I was like, this is going to completely stop everything.
Oh, sorry, I think. Did you mean, sorry, did you, no, when you said SA, I was thinking that you meant
With the sorry, yeah, I thought you meant with the 8%. Yeah. So we would just be buying properties in areas where the councils are more lenient with it, and it would be like mid-terrace houses, end-terrace houses, semi-detached houses with a front door and stuff like that. Yes. I know, that's it always amazes me that I speak to loads of people, a couple of guys that I'm quite friendly with, they've got like essays in like Airdrie and stuff like that, and there's like a 3-bed terraced house in Airdrie or whatever, and they're making like 35, 40 grand a year from it. Well, I was on a Zoom call with that STL Solutions in November, I think, and they were saying that they're making it a lot more lenient in terms of, because when everything went kind of wrong for me with the essay stuff we were doing, it was like a blanket ban and nobody was getting a license in this, and then it seems to have relaxed a little bit more now. So we actually just sold an essay deal in Edinburgh, just went through in between Christmas and New Year, and it was a main door 1-bedroom flat. So we went on the Zoom call, STL Solutions said, look, probably 95% chance you're going to get a license on this, which I thought was quite good. Exactly, well it's like accommodation for the fringe and stuff like that, it just wasn't enough, was there?
Yeah, I got my licenses, but now I need to get client permission.
Yeah.
So it's sort of,
Totally. That STL Solutions are good.
you're saying you need a backup plan, so I was
Yeah.
thinking get a HMO on it, so if it's pear-shaped, then,
Yeah.
you know,
No, you're spot on. It's just about that exit thing, isn't it? Like the more exits you've got,
yeah, you've got to watch it.
exactly. That's the most important thing, especially with the SA stuff, because if you don't get a license then, and you've just bought it on that basis, and you could be sort of in hot water, couldn't you? But yeah, this makes sense.
Any other questions from Matt?
All good. Thanks very much. Good to be here.